Welcome. Welcome to the Inspiring You Show, my friends. If we haven't met, I'm Henry. So, my friends, we're going to do a mindfulness chat about one of the energy themes of the month. But before we get to that, let's take a moment to gather in gentle silence before we begin. So, take a moment to settle into this space, find a comfortable position, and then close your eyes, lower your gaze if that feels soothing, and take a slow, centering breath. And take another breath. Inhale clarity, exhale distraction. Take another deep breath in, and then exhale any kind of tension. Letting go of any external noise, tension, or distractions, and allowing yourself to become fully present in this moment. Inhaling clarity, self awareness, empowerment. Exhaling any kind of tension, doubt, or confusion. You're here now, exactly where you need to be. Take another deep breath in, and then exhale, allowing yourself to arrive fully in this moment. Breathing in life force energy, breathing out when no longer supports you. Taking another breath in, bringing in clarity, self respect, alignment. Exhaling any guilt, exhaustion, obligation, any kind of energetic depletion. Breathing in balance, joy, harmony. Breathing out anything else that no longer supports you. Really letting your body soften, your mind settle, your breath flow naturally. Breathing in life force energy, breathing out what no longer supports you. And let's invite Reiki energy healing in. If you wish to receive Reiki, you can say, yes, I'd like to receive Reiki for my highest good. Ask to let go of ego, personal intellect, step aside, become a clear channel, tell the holy fire Reiki energy coming through. Sending Reiki to anybody who wishes to receive it, any situations, the animal kingdom, plant kingdom, Mother Earth, to intentions as well for the highest good. Thank you. Reiki always respects free will. So letting yourself now breathe in life force energy, breathe out what no longer supports you. As you're breathing in now, visualize sense a being knowingness of a circle of light surrounding you, strong yet flexible, protective yet open. This is your energetic boundary. We're going to be talking about boundaries. So, just really understanding that boundaries are not barriers, they're sacred spaces that allow us to engage with life from a place of wholeness. Boundaries are not rejection, they are acts of self love. They help us deepen our connections with others and support ourselves and others. So, as we move further into today's episode, I invite you to bring awareness to where in your life you're ready to redefine, reinforce, or release boundaries that no longer support you. And then take another deep breath. And with that, let's begin. So, today we are going to be explore the seventh theme of the March 2025 energy forecast, one of the 9 themes guiding us through the month of deep transformation. If you'd like the full energy forecast, then it's up on my podcast or it's a previous YouTube episode providing a complete perspective. But for now, we're going to journey into theme number 7 from the March 2025 energy forecast, and that is the empowerment of boundaries, deepening connections, and a journey toward authentic relational healing and dynamics, my friends. So, as we are journeying through this month, boundaries emerge as a powerful tools for transformation and self-care. Boundaries are more than simply limits, they are energetic containers of self respect, clarity, and personal sovereignty. We are experiencing shifts in relationships that invite us to redefine our boundaries clearly, compassionately, and courageously. This is a powerful time to reflect on your relationships, not just who is in your life, but how you engage with them. March 2025 is bringing us into a relational recalibration. So we are being brought into a relational recalibration, a moment where we are being asked to redefine our boundaries, honor our personal truth, and step into deeper, more authentic connections. Boundaries are not walls that separate us, they are guiding principles that define how we give and receive energy. They are acts of self love, creating space for relationships that are reciprocal, nourishing, and aligned. So, as begin this journey together, we're going to be breaking down the conditioning around boundaries, exploring where we may need to make shifts, and discovering how to hold space for self protection and deep connection at the same time, out of the energy of love and care. So, March 2025 brings a pivotal opportunity to reassess our relationships, refine our boundaries, and deepen our connections. The energy of this month invites us to examine the quality and integrity of our interactions, not just who is in our lives, but who we engage, but how we engage with them. So, how we engage with them. So, again, this is a profound relational recalibration where honoring our personal truth becomes the foundation for more authentic, soul aligned relationships. But let's be honest, my friends, boundaries can feel complicated. This can be a really complicated subject matter. It's not as simple as sometimes we want it to be. You know, when you look at boundaries, are my boundaries too rigid, shutting out connection? Are my boundaries too porous, leaving me emotionally drained? Where have I sacrificed my needs to keep peace? So, this month, we're being asked to reclaim the power of boundaries, not as barriers, but as sacred energetic containers that support connection, healing, and self respect. Out of the energy of love, my friends, and mindfulness. So, this theme is about recognizing the power and necessity of healthy boundaries in our lives. And just really, I cannot say it enough, boundaries are not barriers. They aren't barriers. They are energetic guidelines that help us maintain balance, clarity, and authentic relationships. So, March's energies call us to reassess and recalibrate our boundaries, inviting us into a deeper, more meaningful connections, both with ourselves and others. So, we're being courageously asked to examine where our boundaries may have weakened, how we express our truth within relationships, and where we compromise our emotional and energetic well being. Whoo, Z's, my friends. Those are some biggies. That's why it's courageously examine. So, boundaries are essential tools for also preserving your energy, integrity, and well being. They reflect your self worth, self respect, the acknowledgement that your emotional, energetic health matter. Boundaries allow us to show up fully in our relationships without losing ourselves to expectations, demands, or unhealthy dynamics. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it is an act of profound self love and self awareness. When you say no from a place of alignment, you create space for more authentic yeses in your life. So, here are some signs your boundaries may need attention: frequent exhaustion or feeling drained after interactions, persistent anxiety or resentment in relationships, struggling to say no due to guilt, fear of rejection, or the need to please, physical sensations such as tightness, tension, or stress signaling boundary violations. So, we're going to be exploring the empowering role of boundaries in our lives and relationships as we move through this discussion. You'll gain insights in several key areas. So, understanding what healthy boundaries truly means. Boundaries often have a misconception around them. They sometimes are perceived as barriers or walls that isolate us from others. However, healthy boundaries actually create the conditions for genuine connection. So it's really boundaries are not about disconnecting, but rather consciously deciding how you engage with others based on your authentic needs, values, and intuition. They reflect energetic discernment, a practice that protects your emotional, mental, and energetic well being while preserving the quality of your relationships. So, then looking at like clear boundaries serve as a foundation for trust and respect in relationships. They define where you end and another begins, allowing both individuals to remain true to themselves. By setting healthy boundaries, you create a space where authenticity can thrive. Without boundaries, people may unconsciously overstep, leading to feelings of resentment or disconnection. Healthy boundaries allow for mutual understanding, fostering relationships where both parties feel valued and safe. How does that sound? Both parties feeling valued and safe. So, what does it mean to empower our boundaries? So, the empowerment of boundaries, this is not just about saying no or cutting people off. It is not about ghosting people. The true empowerment comes from understanding your needs, your values, your energy, then creating relationships that honor them. Oftentimes, I see in sessions that, when I ask people, well, what are your needs? What are your values at this time? Because values can change, needs can change. Many people that I've done sessions with over the years, not many, some, there's a lot. When I ask that question, they don't even know how to answer it. They don't even know what their needs are. And so that could be for a lot of reasons. It could be trauma in their childhood. There could have been just different things. And so I just encourage you, take time to see like what are your needs and then creating relationships and calling relationships that honor them. Because if you don't understand what you need, then getting into a partnership and expecting your partner to know what you need, it can be a little confusing and there could be some challenges there. So, with that, then, what does it mean to empower your boundaries? Part of it is also deepening connections. On healthy boundaries, don't create distance, they create closeness rooted in light truth. When we set healthy boundaries with clarity and self awareness and the energy of love and peace and harmony, we invite relationships that are more open, honest, and mutually fulfilling. So, then really a journey toward authentic relational healing and dynamics. Relationships are always evolving. That's something always also to keep note of. Relationships are always evolving. We're here to learn, grow, and evolve, which means then the relationship that you entered into, you expecting it to be the same like years from now, it's we're here to learn, grow, and evolve. So that's part of it then, understanding relationships are always evolving. This is about realigning our connections, releasing those that drain us, nurturing the ones that support our well-being. And also, you may need to revisit, like reframing some of your relationships and how you've been seeing it. So, the energy of March is really pushing us to reassess our relational patterns. Here are some journal questions. Are we overextending ourselves to keep the peace? I mean, has anybody done that in the past? Are we overextending ourselves to keep the peace? Are we staying in relationships out of guilt or obligation? Whoo-wee. Are we staying out of relationships out of guilt or obligation? Anyone else have done that? Are we afraid to communicate our needs, fearing rejection? Anyone else? Are we afraid to communicate our needs, fearing rejection? Definitely done those three in the past. Where are you now, though, with it? Where are you now? So, March's energy, humaning also, it can be so amazing, but it can be really complicated. So, make sure to bring compassion in as you are contemplating these questions. March's energy is asking us to let go of outdated dynamics and step into relational integrity. So, this may look like realizing a friendship or partnership no longer aligns with who you are becoming, noticing where you've overgiven in relationships without receiving receiving the balance of it in terms of receiving being able to receive anything from it. Maybe you've just overgiven and you're not receiving anything. Maybe it's not in a reciprocal relationship. Maybe there's only one person giving and it's not reciprocal. And so that's where then, also then feeling called to strengthen boundaries around your time, energy, and emotional and mental space, physical space, and doing it out of a space of mindfulness, care, compassion, and also communication, making sure to communicate in a way that's loving for yourself and others. This process also might bring up grief, frustration, or even relief because when we recognize imbalances in our relationships, we also recognize how much we've evolved. Boundaries are the bridge between who we are and who we are becoming. So why reassessing relationships is crucial to your growth. Our relational dynamics constantly evolve, especially in times of accelerated personal transformation like we are now experiencing. So we'll be exploring why reassessing relationships is not only natural, but natural for growth. And then also, using mindfulness and energetic awareness, you can identify which relationships uplift and expand your energy and which ones deplete or restrict it. And recognizing this dynamic allows you to cultivate relationships that align with your highest self, emotional maturity, and spiritual growth. And then just learning to use mindfulness practices, such as observing your body's responses during interactions, noticing subtle energetic signals indicating when a relationship is no longer supportive of your growth. And then again, doing it in a way that's mindful and loving and caring and compassionate for yourself and others. Also, many of us unconsciously carry limited beliefs about boundaries, often formed in childhood experiences, societal conditioning, or trauma. Common limited or limiting beliefs include fear of rejection or abandonment. If I set a boundary, I'll lose people I love, or feelings of unworthiness. My needs aren't as important as others. So with it, then it's really taking time to explore these deep seated beliefs and becoming aware of how they may have impacted or caused you to suppress your authentic voice or compromise your true needs. So then it's learning how to identify and recalibrate unhealthy relational patterns because unhealthy relational patterns and relationships might manifest in codependency, excessive people pleasing, or difficulty communicating needs or not even knowing what your needs are. And to identify these patterns, you want to reflect on situations where you feel drained, unappreciative, or untrue to yourself. Recalibrating involves stepping back, recognizing the root of these patterns. It could be fear of rejection, unmet needs, maybe as a child, and consciously making choice to shift dynamics, like asserting your needs or addressing imbalances with compassion. And then doing energy work, mindfulness, meditation, journaling, reflective questioning, you can gently excavate the unconscious narratives, bringing them into conscious awareness for healing and release. And then also, if feel like you need to work with a practitioner, a therapist, please do. Please take care of yourself. And this work can also be supported by somatic awareness techniques, trauma informed practices, emotional. You can, if you're doing somatic awareness techniques, emotional suppression often resides as stored tension in the body, requiring acknowledgement and compassionate release. So you want to really work mindfully with boundary setting in real time. Setting boundaries consciously and kindly takes practice. Like anything, we're here to learn, grow, and evolve, and it might feel very uncomfortable at first because it might be something new to you. And so then, just learning how to explore doing so in a way and giving yourself also room to learn. So just exploring then practical somatic informed strategies to support yourself doing this or mindfulness techniques or breath work to pause, ground yourself, use energy healing to clear any blocks or anything that you need to support you to stay grounded and aligned. And then use your mindfulness tools to assess situations before responding. For instance, practicing tuning into your breath and body sensations during conversations or moments of tension to gauge if a boundary is needed. This skill helps you shift from automatic reactions based in fear or conditioned people pleasing to conscious responses rooted in self honoring. Energy work and visualization can also be really helpful to establish healthy energetic boundaries, imagining a light protective field around you, which serves as a gentle yet firm filter between you and external energies. You can use these visualizations, energy clearing practices like Reiki dowsing. You can also do energetic cord cutting, strengthen your energetic boundaries, and maintain clear, balanced interactions. If I feel at times like I'm being infringed upon, where people are coming too close, I ask for columns of light to be put around me. And then if I feel like I still need more space from people, I then imagine that the columns of light are then moving the people further out from me. And it's interesting because oftentimes if I'm standing next to someone, I'll start noticing that they back up a bit. And so there's all kinds of different things that you can do to support yourself and others, and just having these more mindful interactions with one another. It does take practice, and I will say sometimes it's a bit easier to practice healthy boundary setting with people who are more outside your circle. Because when it's family, people like family that you've been with since you were a kid, they might be used to you in a certain way. So if you're practicing there, it might be a little bit more challenging as opposed to someone who, you've just met. So the act of setting boundaries can feel emotionally charged, especially if you've previously experienced rejection or judgment for expressing your needs. And so understanding that this theme is also exploring emotional layers beneath boundary setting, teaching you to hold compassion for the vulnerability, for the fear, the grief that may surface, and understanding that these feelings of also, if there's any guilt, shame, or anxiety around boundaries, often they originate from past trauma or childhood conditioning. So, this is really calling for navigating emotional complexity and vulnerability. And then just really encouraging you to learn, any kind of tools to support you or mindful based techniques to process and heal these underlying emotions, supporting your nervous system and becoming comfortable with vulnerability. When you acknowledge and hold compassion for emotional complexities, boundary setting becomes not only empowering, but also deeply healing. So, really reframing like boundaries as beneficial boundaries. I always say healthy boundaries as empowerment, not isolation. And just understanding that, oftentimes people can misunderstand boundaries. They fear that setting limits means pushing others away or being too much for those around them. But in reality, boundaries do not separate us. They define how we show up in relationships with honesty and integrity. So, boundaries are not walls that isolate, they are bridges to healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Boundaries are not selfish, they are an act of self respect and relational clarity. Boundaries are not about rejecting others, they're about honoring your own energy and needs. So, think of boundaries like the structure of a riverbank. The banks do not restrict the river, they guide and shape its flow, preventing overflow and ensuring that the water moves with purpose. When our boundaries are too rigid, we become closed off, disconnected, and unable to receive support. When our boundaries are too loose, we feel drained, disconnected, and unable to receive support. So when our boundaries are too loose, we feel drained, overwhelmed, and out of alignment. So that's why then healthy boundaries really create balance, allowing the energy to flow freely while maintaining clarity and integrity. So the other thing with boundaries that they're often misunderstood as a way to block, reject, or isolate, but in reality, again, they are a form of empowerment, self-respect, and emotional clarity. I cannot say this enough, and I'm going to say it multiple times in different ways because sometimes we need to hear it slightly different. So to empower your boundaries, it means to recognize your needs as valid, communicate your limits clearly and without guilt, in the energy of love, honoring your energy instead of overextending yourself, releasing codependent patterns that drain you. When we empower our boundaries, we stop seeking external validation for our worth and begin operating from self trust and inner alignment. This creates relationships that are based on genuine connection rather than obligation, guilt, or self sacrifice. So here's a question to ask: where in my life do I need to empower my boundaries instead of shrinking or overextending myself? Where in my life do I need to empower my boundaries instead of shrinking or overextending myself? I would say too, like with boundaries, it doesn't even have to just be with people. It could also be in career, in work situations. Just going over this list in terms of, to empower your boundaries, many of you know that I worked in television for over 20 years. I was a producer in unscripted TV for over 20 years. And whew, I mean, I tell you, the entertainment industry, there's a lot of incredible things and opportunities that I had with it, but yet it's like being in an unhealthy relationship because, even if you're communicating your limits clearly and without guilt, there is a there's an aspect of being in the entertainment industry where it just it doesn't matter if you need a day off to go to the doctor. It doesn't matter if you feel overextended by working 7 days a week, 18-hour days, and you've been doing this for months and you say you need a day off. The system, currently speaking, and I hope that one day it changes, the system is just breaking people in that it just creates an unhealthy way of living and working because you're trying to say things that you need, and the way the system is set up right now, it's incredibly punishing, and so you end up being in this, like, codependent pattern that's draining you in your relationship to work. I mean, yeah, I mean, I had a lot of I healing work PTSD, has probably been one of the the greatest things I've taken time to do because and I had a lot of just patterns, non-beneficial patterns that were created where I was just self-sacrificing like everything to the workplace and you know, my needs just weren't even on the table. And that isn't even like in producers in television. Oftentimes, you don't even have time to like sit down for a 30-minute meal. You're like eating on the go. And I look back at it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, after studying, all this, I've taken so many trauma informed practitioner courses. After studying trauma all these years, I look back now and I'm like, wow, that was like being in a really unhealthy working in the entertainment industry for me, and many times was like being in an unhealthy relationship where, yeah, there was amazing moments, but there was so many more moments that were not so great in terms of overextending myself, self-sacrificing, creating non-beneficial patterns of, not being able to take time to eat or drink or even have time to go to the bathroom. I mean, these are some of the basics, people. And so I say this because it's not just your personal relationships, and I think sometimes we think like, we immediately think romance when we're thinking about boundaries or family, or maybe if you're in a circle of friends, but I also look at it your relationship with career, or even your relationship with with like nutrition or health. There could be limited beliefs that are keeping you in that are keeping you in some sort of imbalance. So when we empower, though, when we really empower our own boundaries, we stop seeking that external validation for our worth and begin operating from self trust and inner alignment. And that really then creates relationships that are based on genuine connection rather than obligation, guilt, or self sacrifice. And I really feel like my relationship with television by the end of the 20 years, it is just like, it was just such a obligation and then self sacrifice. There was some guilt. And I think probably in the beginning of my career, early on, there was probably that, I was young in my early 20s, you wanted that external validation for worth. And so you begin operating in that space. And then that just sets it up, though. You're already in an industry that is extremely broken and doesn't really care about needs per se or people's needs. It just is operating from a space that may not be healthy to begin with. Whoo, whoo. I tell you one thing, they do not teach that in college classes, which I really feel like we should be teaching the mindfulness of careers in a whole different way and implementing it. Okay, so ways to discern whether your boundaries are too rigid or too porous. Boundaries that are too rigid can lead to isolation and an inability to fully connect with others, while too porous boundaries might result in overextending yourself or losing a sense of individuality. Signs of rigidity include shutting people out or avoiding vulnerability. Porous boundaries might show up as overcommitting or being overly influenced by others' emotions. So the key is finding a balance, maintaining openness while also protecting your well being from a space of the energy of love, not fear. I sometimes see people saying, like, I just got to protect myself and that's it, I'm done. But the thing is, though, if you're saying things like that, you might be in a space of reaction and you may not have processed your emotions and you're bringing up defense mechanisms. And so it may not really be from groundedness, alignment, and mindfulness and the energy of love and kindness and care and compassion for yourself and others. It might be a non beneficial habit or pattern that's come in where, you're going into just, maybe just something happened that is an uncomfortable situation that's calling for repair work. And because there may not be tools to be able to repair, instead it's like, let me just shut this relationship down. So that's why you have to use discernment too. So, okay, so then your body also is an incredible your body can really sense things in terms of boundary violations. Your body just gives you the signs and the signals. It is infinitely intelligent. So you want to pay attention to signs such as tension in the chest, clenching jaw, a sinking feeling in the stomach, or a sense of discomfort. Mindfulness practice can heighten this awareness. Regularly check in with yourself through breath work, body scans, identifying unspoken signals. Once you notice these cues, pause, reflect what boundary might be at risk. How can you address it? Sometimes, too, though, if you're somebody who works really more in the multidimensional and you're doing energy work, sometimes it could be something too from like a past life or generational ancestors, or it could be something from the future. And that's why you have to use discernment to kind of figure out like what's really happening here. Okay, so then the emotional charge of setting boundaries. Establishing boundaries often can stir up deeply ingrained emotions, like if past attempts at asserting your needs were met with rejection, criticism, or abandonment. The act of boundary setting can trigger fears of being dismissed or unloved. These responses are not irrational, they are survival mechanisms shaped by past experiences where you learn that prioritizing your needs could jeopardize your sense of belonging. So, this emotional charge often leads to feelings of hesitation or discomfort when setting boundaries. So, to navigate this, it's important to acknowledge that the emotional tension as a natural part of growth. And by honoring these feelings, you can approach the process with compassion rather than self judgment. Okay, holding compassion for vulnerability, fear, and grief. The vulnerability that accompanies boundary setting comes from exposing your inner truths, what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued. This exposure can evoke fear of being misunderstood or cause discomfort for others. And additionally, there may be grief tied to recognizing past experiences where your boundaries were overstepped or relationships where you felt unseen or unheard. So, with that, then mindfulness and compassion play vital roles here. They allow you to stay present with these emotions, viewing them not as obstacles, but as signals of your humanity. When you approach boundary work with self compassion, it becomes easier to acknowledge that your needs are valid, even if they've been like overlooked in the past. So many people can feel guilty when they're setting boundaries, particularly if they've been conditioned to prioritize others' needs over their own. Anybody grow up with parents or one parent that their emotions were more important than anyone else in the family? Yes. So this often stems from childhood conditioning where individuals might have internalized beliefs, like I must keep the peace or that other person's emotions are more important, or I'm selfish if I say no because they really need help. Similarly, shame can arise when asserting boundaries if viewed as a sign of weakness or inadequacy, reflecting societal or familial norms. And so I also I went to Catholic school for 12 years. So I grew up Catholic. And so there was also a case like, where you help people, if somebody's in need. And so if you have, just imagine then having a parent who their emotions were, the most important in terms of everybody. And then you're also being conditioned to always help no matter what. So it's hard then to like, well, what about my needs? And so then that's how you can end up in like feeling guilty or shame, and you have to kind of process those emotions because those are possibly limited beliefs and conditions of how you were raised possibly. And remember, it's not right, wrong, good or bad. It's a business of business. And it's just, in terms of humanity, it is a slow evolving process at times where from generation to generation, it's just etched out a little bit more in terms of the evolving. Sometimes there's large waves of consciousness that comes in, but that's why just having patience with the process and really learning how to use these tools can really support you in terms of having just a higher quality with yourself and others in relationships, even if you come from a situation where you had a lot of trauma as a child or even as an adult or both. Okay, so also anxiety is another common response. It may manifest as overthinking how others will react to your boundaries or catastrophizing potential fallout. These feelings often stem from unresolved past traumas where your safety or acceptance was threatened when you spoke up for yourself. So the path forward involves recognizing these emotional patterns as remnants of earlier experiences rather than the truths about your present self. So, practices like inner child work or somatic awareness can really gently help release these ingrained responses over time. So, then here's like a framework for mindful emotional processing that can also help. One, pause and acknowledge. When emotions arise, pause to name them. I feel fear. I sense guilt. I feel sadness. This simple act brings awareness and detaches you from identifying too closely with the emotion. It just brings space around it to let it process. And then, if you can, explore the source. Reflect on where this feeling might stem from. Is it tied to past memory, belief, or conditioning? Understanding the root can help you break free from automatic reactions. And then it can also let the emotion process so that way it can clear and come to completion and the wisdom can be downloaded. Practice self validation too. Remind yourself that your feelings are valid and that setting boundaries is an act of self respect and not selfishness. It's an act of love. And then regulate through the body. Emotions often manifest physically. So using calming techniques, and doing energy work, doing deep breathing, mindfulness meditation, grounding exercises, gentle movement to ease the body's stress response, resetting the nervous system. And then really learning to shift into the energy of love, not fear. When ready to communicate your boundaries with love and kindness, the energy of love, compassion, and let this intention come from a place of honoring both yourself and the relationship. And remember, it can take time. So, time to learn this. So, give yourself room to learn, grow, and evolve. And while vulnerability may feel intimidating, it's also a gateway to deeper connection with yourself and others. When you dare to express your needs, you create space for authentic relationships based on mutual understanding. Boundary setting becomes not just an act of protection, but a profound expression of self love and respect. I mean, I'm sure many of us have seen in social media, or we've a movie or TV show where all of a sudden the character, or maybe in real life, the person in the video becomes really honest about where they are. And you can feel it in your heart, and you can feel their authenticity. And it just becomes like this deeply, this you create this deep space of authentic relational relationships where you're really connecting and you can feel it in your heart. So boundary setting becomes not just an act of protection, but a profound expression of self love, respect. And this theme, when embraced, it really embraces and it really invites a powerful shift in how you relate to your emotions and those around you. How does this expanded explanation align with what you're envisioning? If there is a particular angle it like how does this expanded I can't say that better. How does this expanded explanation align with what you're envisioning? So really take time, for that to let yourself um answer that. Um, and then cultural differences also can play a significant role in shaping how people understand, communicate, and respect boundaries. It's so interesting to me how sometimes people think you know, that everyone has to act the same. It's just not true. We're here to learn, grow, and evolve, and there's all kinds of different experiences. And so being curious about how somebody was raised, or what their life has been like, because these differences are deeply rooted in societal norms, values, and expectations that can influence interpersonal relationships. So when you really have curiosity about cultural differences, it can support you in terms of having healthier relationships with yourself and the world. So cultural differences play a significant role in shaping how people understand, communicate, and respect boundaries. These differences are deeply rooted in societal norms, values, and expectations that influence interpersonal relationships. So let's just look at a few aspects. So individualistic versus collectivist cultures. In an individualistic culture like the US or many Western European nations, there's often an emphasis on personal autonomy and self expression. Here, setting boundaries is seen as a sign of self respect and independence. People may openly assert their needs and preferences, even if it creates conflicts As individually, though, it is highly valued. In collectivist cultures, like many Asian, African, and Latin American societies, the focus is on group harmony, interconnectedness, and mutual support. Doesn't that sound so nice, though? As somebody who's lived in the US, I'm like, oh, it sounds so nice. So the focus is on group harmony, interconnectedness, and mutual support. In these cultures, setting boundaries may be perceived as selfish or disruptive to relationships, and people might prioritize the needs of the group over their own, leading to more implicit or subtle expressions of boundaries. So that being said, though, that's where individualist cultures and collectivist cultures, they can learn from each other. We're here to learn, grow, and evolve. So we can learn how to then have a healthy balance in terms of self and others, and still be in harmony in regard to the group, but also prioritizing and allowing ourselves to have needs as well. So that's where, when you look at divine design of things, it's like, well, of course, of course, in the world, there's these different experiences because essentially we're all moving to unity consciousness. And so we can learn from each other in order to shift into unity consciousness. Because what we now understand more so is you got to put the oxygen mask on first and then help someone else. Otherwise, you're just become depleted. So we can learn from each other. Right? How amazing is that? And then, okay, then another one is communication styles, direct versus indirect. So cultures with a direct communication style, Germany, Scandinavia, can encourage clear and straightforward boundary setting. People are expected to express their preferences openly, which is often viewed as honest and efficient. On the other hand, indirect communication styles, where it could be somewhere like, you know, maybe in Japan or India or some other places, they value subtlety, nonverbal cues. And by the way, if I'm saying this in a country that I'm not correct on, please feel free to reach out and message me because this is just in the research that I've done. And don't have a lived experience there as a human. This is in the research that I've done to give, just kind of give examples of. And it's not right, wrong, good or bad. It's the business of the isness. And we're here to learn, grow, and evolve and work with one another. So, how can we learn from one another? So, all right, indirect communication styles value subtlety, nonverbal cues, and such cultures, boundaries might be communicated through context, tone, or actions rather than explicit words. Maintaining politeness and avoiding embarrassment are prioritized. So that's where also too it's understanding when you go different places, what is their communication style? So that way, if you are going there for the first time, you can understand what their styles are. I've heard that when people come to the US, they're really surprised at first, like how friendly it can seem, or like how they can go to a grocery store and how people will say like hello and hi. I've heard this from a few different videos from people who talk about coming over to the US. So anyway, there's just different communication styles. And again, it's not right, wrong, good or bad. It's the isness and just understanding and also know that we are growing as individuals and as a society in terms of globally. Um, Also, there can be other things too, where just gender roles and expectations. In some cultures, societal gender norms influence boundary dynamics. Women in more patriarchal societies may find it challenging to assert boundaries due to expectations of self-sacrifice or submission, or egalitarian cultures, societies. I think I'm saying that right. There is often greater acceptance of women setting boundaries in personal and professional contexts. Also, too, the role of shame and honor in cultures that emphasize concepts of shame or honor, people may avoid setting boundaries if risks bring shame to the family or group. So, fear of being perceived as disrespectful or causing a loss of face can discourage open expression of needs. And so, the reason why I'm sharing this because, you know, if any of these are kind of hitting you like, "Oh, yeah, that's my family," you wanna write it down and see if there's any beliefs there that need to be released or even an energy work that needs to be released. Another one is family and community influence. In cultures with strong family or community ties, boundaries may be more fluid. The expectation to always be available for family members or fulfill communal responsibilities can make it harder to set limits. By contrast, in cultures that prioritize individual goals, people may feel more empowered to establish boundaries even within close relationships. I feel like that first part really applied to me and working in television. It just felt like the expectation was always to be available to the job and then to fulfill communal responsibilities no matter what. Um, And so then if I was gonna do energy work, I would work to clear any non-beneficial aspects in regard to work, family, and community influence in terms of entertainment industry and any negative patterns, programs, or anything like that, non-beneficial links that were created from it. and then call in more harmony and strengthen having healthy boundaries and anything else I needed to call in for the highest good. That's what I would do in a dowsing session for myself. So all this information that I'm sharing, you can really let yourself use the information to to do self-discovery, like what's going on here. Also, then understanding cultural differences can help also foster empathy and create space for effective boundary setting across cultural lines. I find it interesting because on my Inspiring You podcast, there right now my podcast is, I think last time I checked, is in like over 70 countries, and it's amazing. And one of the reasons why I did research to talk about other countries was because I recognize that the podcast is in other countries, and I want to invite more people into the conversation and not just, focus, like, just because I live in the United States right now, it doesn't mean that the rest of the world doesn't exist. And so I did research to understand, you know, what's going on in the world in terms of this theme and the cultural aspects of it to understand, which then allows me just to have greater empathy and compassion and understanding of the world. So with that, and it lets you have, navigate, like, understanding cultural differences can help foster empathy and create space for a more effective boundary setting in terms of healthy boundary setting and relationships over across cultural lines. Because when interacting with people from different backgrounds, it's using the mindfulness tools, observe and listen, pay attention to communication styles, relational dynamics to gauge how boundaries are typically set. Adapt with care. Balance expressing your boundaries with being mindful of cultural norms to maintain respect and connection. Practice curiosity. If unsure, ask questions with genuine interest to understand the other person's perspective. Cultural influences add richness and complexity to the process of boundary setting. But with awareness and respect, they can also pave the way for deeper, more meaningful connections. So, how does, really letting yourself, you know, that can just support you in terms of having just incredible richness in your relationships. Um, and so with that, then boundary setting has a profound impact on emotional health as it is directly influences you on how you navigate relationships, manage stress, and maintain a sense of self. So we talked a little bit about, though, then, working with your emotions. And when you establish clear boundaries, you create a buffer against emotional overwhelm by defining what is and isn't acceptable, and not in a black and white rigid way, because y'all, there's going to be nuances. This is humaning. There's going to be stuff that happens. Nothing's going to be set in stone here. You're going to need to flow like the river. So things are going to happen. So, but by defining what is and isn't acceptable, you limit exposure to situations, behaviors, or dynamics that drain your energy. This can prevent the buildup of stress and help you feel more in control of your emotional space. Also, fostering emotional safety. Healthy boundaries create an environment where you feel safe to express yourself authentically without fear of judgment or violation. Emotional safety allows you to be vulnerable, share openly, and connect deeply with others, which is essential for fulfilling relationships. Without boundaries, you may find yourself agreeing to things that don't align with your needs or values, leading to feelings of resentment or being taken advantage of. Boundaries serve as a safeguard, ensuring that your actions align with your emotional capacity and preventing lingering frustration. Also, setting boundaries is a powerful act of self respect. It reinforces the belief that your needs and feelings are valid, and deserving of care. Over time, this practice strengthens your self esteem, and you consistently can then honor your emotional well being. Boundaries also help you understand your emotional triggers and limits. It provides emotional clarity. By identifying what feels right or wrong for you, you gain clarity about your values and priorities. This self awareness allows you to respond to challenges more effectively and maintain emotional balance. In relationships, boundaries define the mutual respect and understanding necessary for long term health. They establish clear expectations, reduce misunderstandings, and promote honest communication. When both parties respect each other's boundaries, trust and connection can flourish. You have a deeper heart connection with one another. Overcoming the discomfort of setting boundaries builds resilience. So builds emotional resilience. So each time you assert a boundary, you confront fears of rejection or conflict, and you grow more confident in your ability to protect your emotional needs. This resilience can ripple out into other areas of life, fostering inner strength. For those prone to overextending themselves, whether through work, caregiving, or social obligations, boundaries are critical because then it prevents burnout. They act as a protective mechanism against overcommitment, allowing you to conserve your energy and prioritize self-care. This prevents emotional exhaustion and long-term burnout. Y'all, I had such a burnout from working in television. Burned out the last couple of years I was there. Whew. Um, so not only does boundary setting influence your emotional health, but it also affects your physical well-being. Chronic stress from ignored boundaries can manifest in tension, fatigue, or other stress-related symptoms. Honoring your emotional limits often leads to greater overall vitality and balance. It's that mind-body connection, y'all. By learning to set and uphold boundaries, you not only protect your emotional health, but you also create a foundation for personal growth and thriving relationships. So really letting yourself understand that, my friends, because boundary setting plays a crucial role in effective stress management as it directly addresses the sources of overwhelm and helps maintain emotional balance. So here's a deeper exploration of how they interconnect. One, it prevents overcommitment. Without boundaries, you may find yourself saying yes to more obligations than you can handle, leading to stress and burnout. By setting limits on your time and energy, you create space for rest and self care. For example, declining unnecessary meetings at work or carving out quiet time for yourself reduces the pressure of constant demands. Two, reducing interpersonal stress. Unclear or porous boundaries often lead to conflict, resentment, or feelings of being taken advantage of in relationships. By setting and communicating clear boundaries, you establish respectful dynamics that prevent misunderstandings and emotional strain. This is especially helpful in environments where others may place excessive expectations on you. Protecting energy and emotional well being. And when I say protective energy, I mean from the energy of love and care for yourself and others, not out of fear. Boundaries act as filters. They help you decide where to direct your energy. They shield you from situations or people that drain or negatively affect you, such as toxic relationships, unrealistic workloads, or excessive screen time. This preservation of energy significantly reduces stress and promotes a sense of calm, creating clarity and control. When boundaries are clear, it's easier to navigate decisions and interactions. You'll feel less overwhelmed because you know your limits and you can communicate them effectively. This clarity reduces uncertainty and the emotional tension that comes with navigating blurred lines. Also, then boundaries help you prioritize what truly matters, whether it's work, personal growth, or relationships. It really encourages mindful time management. For example, setting boundaries around work allows you to dedicate time to hobbies, families, or mindfulness practices, reducing the stress of feeling always on. Y'all, there was time when I was working in TV where I felt so burnt out and I just felt like I had no like life outside of work. Oh, whew. Yeah. It's so important. The subject matter is so important, my friends. It is so important. I can't even tell you the last couple of years in television, I was just your nervous system from always working, you're always on the go, 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 go. You're just constantly in this like this chronic go mode, which just affects you in so many different ways, which that is probably a whole nother topic that I need to talk about because then your cortisol levels are up and you're constantly in a relationship with stress. And even though I was doing energy work and meditation, it's still, I had no downtime. I was always go, 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 work, 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 work. And so when people are like, and then you get into this relationship with productivity, which is being productive, which is just can become so unhealthy. That's a whole nother thing. Your your relationship with tasks and lists, it, it can become so incredibly unhealthy because you're like, I need to go, 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 do, 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 do. And if I don't get 15 things done in a day, then I was not successful in the day. And meanwhile, you might need to be resting because the previous day you pushed really hard. And so then today you need to rest. But if you have a mentality or a belief system that believes that, to be successful, I have to do, 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 then your system is constantly probably, in a high stress way, which is why, really learning, encouraging mindful time management, having time off to do things. Cause also that also, when you're always on and you're not allowing yourself to have hobbies or other things, there was just a moment working in television where I realized I worked so much one year, so much. I was working on X Factor. This is back in 2011. If you're in my meditate with me, we just did this weekend. We talked about Neptune and how it was completing its cycle from 2011 to now, and 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 so one of the situations I was in 2011 was I'd already been working so much, but I got into the show X Factor, and I all of a sudden was working 8-hour weeks, 7 days a week for like months at a time. And everything was to go, like constantly getting my coffee to go, getting my meals to go, you're eating on the run. And I remember I hadn't been in the grocery store in like months, like months. And one night we got out early. I think it was probably like maybe like 10 p.m. And I decided to swing by the grocery store, and I go in. By the time I got there, it was probably like 10:30, maybe 11 p.m., something like that. And there was like barely anybody in there. And I remember just walking in, getting a cart, and I'm walking around the grocery store going, I don't even think I don't even know when the last time I stepped into a grocery store. What do I get here? And it was such a moment of like, how am I adulting and I don't even know what to get at the grocery store because I haven't been here in so long because I'm so imbalanced with my relationship with life outside of work. It's like, talk about mindful time management where I was always on and getting what I needed to do for work, but in terms of my personal life, I was not showing up for my personal life at all, to the point where it was an eye-opening moment in the grocery store where I was like, I don't even know what to get. I don't even know what to do in the grocery store because I had been eating out like all my meals. And I had such a shutdown system in regard to my personal life. And so this is such an important theme, not just for this month, just but in terms of life lessons. That was a moment, that was a turning point in my life in 2011. Turning point moment where I realized, wow, I need to change this. And and I still clearly remember where I was in the grocery store when I recognized it, and I had that mindfulness moment, and I decided that I need to change this, that this moving forward is going to look different for me. It took a while though, y'all. It was not like so instant because because we were working on a show that sometimes we slept in sometimes we slept in the edit bay. It was crazy. Like, I never pulled all-nighters in college, and we would be sleeping in edit bays. Sometimes I would leave work at like 7, 8 in the morning. Do you know what that does to you when you show up one morning for work and you work all day, all night, and you don't even go outside until the next morning to leave? It is such a It is such a mind fuck, excuse my French. It's just crazy. Um, and so anyway, it's like, in some of these systems that we've built in humanity, are they really working for the human to have a beneficial life? Or are we trying to squeeze everything out of the human for the system that it's not even the system doesn't matter, it's the humans, right? So that's why healthy boundaries, this subject matter is so incredibly important, so incredibly important. And then, the next one in this one that we're talking about is going to be then managing emotional triggers. Stress is often heightened by unresolved emotional triggers such as guilt, obligation, or fear of rejection. Learning to set healthy boundaries empowers you to say no without guilt and protect your emotional well being. For instance, declining invitations that don't align with your energy levels, minimize unnecessary emotional strains. I'll also say, too, like stress in terms of heightening unresolved emotional triggers. Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you how many times I was on set where I saw people were so stressed and they also had not slept, and there was a ton of unresolved emotional triggers, and then next thing you know, on set, there would just be verbal explosions all over the place. And because of these factors where no sleep, heavy duty stress, unresolved emotional triggers, always having to be on at work, not having any personal time off. So really mindful time management, being able to say no, and then also learning how to handle and work with your emotions and reducing your stress. One of the reasons why I ended up becoming certified in mindfulness meditation was because, I was on a TV show and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I need more tools." And I got myself into a 6-week beginning mindful meditation class, because I recognized, yeah, I just need more support. And so that was the one thing I did all throughout work, was making sure that I went to do energy work or meditation, or most of the time. But when I was on X Factor, I would just do energy work once a month. But it really did help me as much as it possibly could, even though I was really burnt out and overworked at a certain point. Also then, with managing emotional triggers, learning to set boundaries empowers you to say no without guilt and to protect your emotional well-being. And so with that though, it might take a few times to release guilt from saying no, especially if you work in an industry like the entertainment industry, where it's just sometimes, like, if you would say no to a job, the other person would say on the phone, well, like, "Oh, I guess, what, you don't wanna work with us anymore? Well, don't worry, there's another person on the list that will take your job. I guess we won't be working with each other." It was so interesting how, if you had something else to do, that means then your loyalty isn't to them or to the job, which means then they would threaten you that you're probably not going to be hired here again because you're not available to us. There was like weird moments of like blackmail. So, and now they've done all this trauma studying. I'm like, oh my goodness. Um, but again, you just use mindfulness, not judging, and it's a broken system that was cultivated at a different time. So then promoting self-care practices within this. Boundaries create space needed for self-care routines, which is funny because when you work on it, when you work at something like 18-hour days, 7 days a week, it's really it's really hard to have healthy self-care routines. I mean, I was sleeping in the edit bay at times. Or once I was on a show where every 3 days we were traveling to a new city. I mean, for months like that. Do you know what that does to your body when every 3 days you're traveling to a new city, and when you're in the city, you're from 0 to 100. You're like, "Go, go, 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 go," because every city we were in, we basically had to film half an episode of a show. And so, I will say though, there's a lot of moments that I'm really proud of because they were seemingly impossible tasks to do. And I'm really proud of some of the ways that we collaborated as a team to get things done. And that just shows again and again, like the power of humanity and the power to brainstorm. It was really, really amazing. And that was a positive from it. But promoting self care practices, boundaries create space needed for self care routines. But that being said, though, if you are in a situation where you're in an environment, like I just mentioned in the entertainment industry, it might take a while to be able to create self practices. So you can do little ones. Like I did little ones where I went to a meditation class. I also did energy work at least once a month with a practitioner. So when you also reserve time for meditation exercise or simply unwinding, I also did Kundalini yoga meditation a lot too. That helped a lot. Um, so simply unwinding, you actively reduce cortisol levels and other stress responses in your body. Boundaries make self-nurturing a consistent and protected practice. So yeah, so I did, oh gosh, there's another one. So my relationship with Kundalini yoga and meditation started also on a TV show because I was working at a production company that was located next to this Kundalini yoga meditation center that I had been wanting to go to for years. And we were in a situation on a show where our boss, and I learned a lot of amazing production aspects from her. But there was a part of it that I felt so uncomfortable, and so many people on our show felt uncomfortable, and we voiced it to her. This is a boundary thing. She When she needed to go, I'm gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. When she needed to go to the bathroom, she would make the team follow her to the bathroom, and even though we would say, "No, no, no, you go to the bathroom. We're gonna go to our desks. Why don't you come get us after you go to the bathroom?" She would insist that we just follow her to the bathroom, and she would leave the bathroom door open while she was going on the toilet. And I never wanted to follow her to the bathroom, but she would grab your arm and she would make you follow her, and I would turn my back, and I would be so incredibly uncomfortable. Talk about like you're trying to set boundaries, and you're saying what you need. This is where it becomes so confusing in terms of sometimes when you're in a work situation, especially in entertainment, where sometimes it just feels like you can't have needs or boundaries. And so this person this would happen, and sometimes we'd have like team meetings. There would be like 10 people outside the bathroom while she's going to the bathroom, and everybody's backs would be like turned, so we're giving her privacy. It was so uncomfortable. And so there was a moment where I was like, I'm so uncomfortable, and I was like, this is it. I need to go and do something that's going to be supportive to me. And I checked the yoga classes, and there was a yoga class. I remember I think it was like 6 p.m., 6:30 or something around there. And the yoga class was going to start at 7 p.m. And I was a producer, and my associate producer who was on my team, I said to her, Teresa, I said, hey, you want to try this yoga class, Kundalini yoga meditation? And she's like, yeah, I'll go. And then she's like, you think we can go? And I'm like, I'm just going to let her know we're going. And so I went into I think she was the supervising producer. I went into the supervising producer's office, and I just said, or maybe she was the co-EP. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I went in and I just said, hey, Teresa and I are going to leave at 6:45 to go to this yoga class. And I said, and our work is all done. We're all set for tomorrow. And we were filming the next day. I said, we're set for tomorrow. So there's nothing else left for her to do tonight. So we're going to go and do this. The look that she gave me was so incredibly scathing. But I had just had a moment earlier where I said I didn't want to follow everyone with her to the bathroom. And yet she insisted. And I just looked at her and I just said, look, this class will help Teresa and I in terms of reducing stress. Will just make us better producers for tomorrow. And there's nothing left we can do tonight. And all our work is done. So we're going. And the way that I said it was just like, I'm setting a boundary. And so then she just looked at me and she's like, fine. And I could tell that she was disappointed that I wasn't going to stay later, because that's the other thing too in TV, where even if you're done with your work, some reason they just want to make you stay later. And so Teresa and I went to this yoga class. And I remember going in and I was just like, oh my God, I feel so much better, because there was like an energy clearing as soon as I walked in. And it was just life changing, where and I share that because even if you don't have a sense of feeling like you can set sometimes some boundaries in certain ways, there's other aspects that you can do things. And in that show, I started, that was the first moment of saying, we're going to go to this yoga class. And then anytime things felt really sometimes weird or chaotic in the space, I would literally look at Teresa and go, we're going to yoga class tonight. Because it really helped us to maintain clearing out stress, and also to be able to have more of a balance in our lives in terms of boundaries, even though some sections in our life we weren't able to. And it was helping us then using boundaries for stress management. And I share that because sometimes sometimes you're trying to set boundaries and it's just not clear cut yet, or you don't have certain room that you may have in some of the areas, especially if you're in a work situation that you can't jump ship right away. And I know sometimes people would say like, well, why don't you just quit? I just was not in a space that, I was able to quit, because also sometimes working in TV, when you're on a job, it's like, wait, is there any other shows coming up? Like the timing of shows and things like that. And so you have to then process like what is beneficial in terms of the overall. And I also too, I really liked the show. I loved the content of the show that we were doing. The content of the show was so incredibly inspiring. It was so inspiring. We were creating proposals for people. We were finding out their love stories, and we were creating these amazing proposals for people. It was so incredibly inspiring. I actually loved that show, and I loved working with Teresa and so many other people that were on the show. And I did learn some things from that person that helped me become a better producer. It just for some reason they couldn't understand that we were uncomfortable with that scenario. Um, so anyway, with that, then it's just about then practicing these boundaries, practicing these experiences, and using then tips for using. Here's some other tips for, as I'm saying this, I also working in television, there's just some crazy scenarios that you can end up in where you're just like, what is happening? Where you just, I mean, y'all, as I'm talking about boundaries, I'm also thinking about other scenarios that I was in. There is an episode of my Inspiring You Show podcast where I did some episodes with a former producer, Mike Hazen, where we were producers early on in our career together. And we talk about being on Weakest Link together. That episode, y'all, go listen to the Live and Learn episodes on the Inspiring You Show on my podcast, on wherever you listen to podcasts, because we talked about being on Weakest Link. It was early in our early in our early in our careers, and there was a situation that was so incredibly uncomfortable that neither one of us had been prepared on how to handle, and it involved, woo-wee, it involved the host, it involved, oh, it was such an uncomfortable scenario on so many places, and I tell you, college does not prepare you for some of these scenarios that you could end up in. And, but we talk about it on it. And that was also in a situation where you feel like helpless, where you're like, how do I set boundaries in this? And also, who do you talk to? That's the other challenge is entertainment industry. There's not really like a HR where you can go and talk to, or an HR that actually is gonna support, because usually HR too is for, like, the company that you're working for, and so yeah, those episodes, if you wanna learn more about some of the scenarios, we did about, I think we did, like, 6 episodes. We worked on Weakest Link together, we worked on NBC's Average Joe many seasons together. We worked on another show together, and we talked about some of the experiences of just, experiencing abuse on set or gaslighting. And by abuse, I mean mental and emotional, um, abuse, gaslighting. So anyway, I have a lot of experience with stress management tools, and then also understanding now the importance of, really caring for yourself in relationship to boundaries. So let's talk about some practical tips using boundaries for stress management. One, prioritizing non negotiables, identifying the activities or times of day that are essential for your well being and protect them fiercely. I will say, when I was working in television, the challenge is that I put the work ahead of everything. Like, that was more important than anything. And so, even if I was saying, I'm not comfortable with that, the challenge is that if the boss said you had to do it, I would then be like, "Oh, well, I have to do it because it's about the job." Um, and so now I have a different perspective on it, and so that young self of mine, I just give her a lot of love and care, because she was trying to navigate a really difficult situation without understanding certain things, that she could say no, and that it just might mean also that maybe she needed to leave TV earlier than she did. Um, so also, um, practical tips in terms of boundary and stress management, like communicate early and clearly. When possible, set boundaries before stress levels escalate so you can handle the situation calmly and proactively. Like when I mentioned that I don't know if she was I think maybe she was the co-EP or a supervising producer. I don't remember. But when I told her that we were going to go to yoga, I was just really grounded about it, and I'd also firmly was like, "That is it. We are going to do something that is healthy for ourselves, because I need a breather from that kind of aspect that I just experienced." And I didn't say it in a judgy way, anything, and I didn't even bring that up. I just was calm. I stated that we'd done our work and that we were ready for tomorrow and we're excited about tomorrow, but we're going to go and do this yoga class to release some stress. So that way we're game on for the next day. And in my way of saying that, it just then invited the person in to say, like, oh, yeah, yeah, you go do that. Um, so then communicate early and clearly. Reevaluate regularly. All life circumstances change. Periodically revisit your boundaries to ensure they align with your current needs. That's a really important one. Practice saying no gracefully. Learn how to decline requests with kindness but firmness. For instance, I'd love to help, but I can't take this on right now. Or I'd love to go, but I'm just not able to right now. When boundaries are treated as stress management tool, they empower you to regain control, protect your emotional balance, and create a life that feels more sustainable and fulfilling. So then with that, then, why March is a turning point for relational healing. The cosmic energy of March is shedding light on relational dynamics, where we feel empowered, where we feel depleted, where change is needed. And that's the other thing too, is where, when you go through, like, I can say now from a space where I am looking back at my younger self and wishing my younger self had just had more options, or what seemed like limited options back then. But my younger self was also in a process of really learning, growing, and evolving and understanding where we are as society with systems and also in relationship with people. And so now I can talk about it from a wisdom point of why these things really matter, because I experienced burnout. I experienced emotional exhaustion. I experienced, energy draining. I experienced, stress. I experienced my cortisol levels being extremely high, my body always feeling this intense tiredness because you're just in that constant high of the cortisol levels. And I know this now from a physical body, mental and emotional body experience. And in regard to spirituality, my guides were there trying to help me move through it. The challenge is though that sometimes in our humaning, no matter how connected you are, or in my experience of what I feel, no matter how connected you are, no matter how much you're talking to your guides, no matter how much you're channeling, whatever it is, the human has free will. And also, too, you're here to learn, grow, and evolve. And so your guides aren't going to also forsake you to have experiences that are meant to be eye opening for you. And I needed to understand, excuse my French, what the fuck is going on here in the world? Like, what is happening in our society with our workplace, our personal life? And so, if I didn't experience it to the extreme, I wouldn't understand how it's been breaking us in terms of humanity, which then, as an energy practitioner, when somebody comes in extremely depleted, I'm able to hold energetic space. I'm able to hold space, becoming a clear channel to anchor light. And I'm also able to understand and expand in the consciousness of it, because I've also had a felt experience in the personal world, in this physical world, which then allows you then to anchor even more light in, because you have a realization of something on multiple levels in terms of the multidimensional aspect of it. So that's why too, it's not these difficult experiences that we've been in. It's, what are they doing to help us learn, grow, and evolve? And when I mentioned Neptune earlier, the whole 2011 to 2025, in terms of the, like, what it's been bringing to learn, grow, and evolve, 2011 was a pivotal year for me on multiple levels. And I can now say in 2025, like, wow, I can see even a grander way of how, you know, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, Earth, like everything, the universe is trying to really align us to support us in waking up. And so I can't suggest enough, encourage enough for you to take time to really, really think about, some of these reflection questions. I'm actually gonna look where I don't know if I can get to the. I don't think I have it with me. I was gonna see if I can get to the. Oh, here's the journal prompts for Neptune. So Neptune completes its 14-year journal. uh, Neptune completes its 14-year journey through Pisces 2011 through 2025. And so we are then reflecting. It's a real moment to reflect, release, realign. And here is what the journal prompts are. Reflect back to 2011. Who were you then? And who are you now? This was a profound journal question for me just a couple days ago. So I'd love to know from you, though. Reflect back to 2011. Who were you then and who are you now? Identify significant illusions that dissolved regarding your sense of purpose, spirituality, and core relationships. And then explore deeper truths and realizations that have emerged over this 14-year cycle. I mean, look, I just shared one. I was caught in an illusion that I had to put the system of work before my own needs at times, before my own boundaries, that I then had to follow a group of people who was following the the boss per se, to then have them leave the door open to go to the bathroom, and you're having meetings outside of a bathroom door with your backs turned, not feeling so uncomfortable. I was in an illusion that I had to stay, that I didn't have any wiggle room to say, even though I was saying I didn't want to, like, oh, no, no, you go to the bathroom. I still, because everybody else was going and this is what we're supposed to do, I didn't feel like I could leave the situation. Whew. And now, I've left television. I have created a whole nother life. So for you then, reflect back to 2011. Who were you then? Who are you now in relationship to your boundaries? Identify significant illusions dissolved regarding your boundaries in terms of sense of purpose, who you are now, core relationships. You can use the 14-year cycle in terms of Neptune from 2011 to 2025. How have these truths reshaped your vision for your future? Contemplate how your dreams and aspirations evolved during this time. Which dreams remain deeply resonant, which have shifted, and why? Well, one of the reasons why my relationship with entertainment, working in TV, has shifted was because I realized at a certain point that the values weren't lining up and that I can no longer self sacrifice. So that was a boundary. And so that's why too, it's not black and white. There's a whole nuanced area. And with right now with March, it's a turning point for relational healing. A cosmic energy of March is shedding light on our relational dynamics, where we feel empowered, where we feel depleted, where change is needed. But take time to really explore it. Me just mentioning now, like, I hadn't even thought about this going in, about my working in television or the Neptune, in terms of 2011. I'm like, wow, I have done major healthy boundary work since 2011. And I'm getting a little emotional. I just feel really proud of myself because working in television can be so confusing. You just didn't even have anybody to go talk to about, like, what do you do in these scenarios? It's like you get out of college or school, high school, and you no longer have a guidance counselor. And so then you're trying to shift through these difficult experiences, like trying to make some sort of semblance of, like, how do I navigate this? So, really proud of just where I've come in my relationship with boundaries for self, with work, with others. And so for you, take time for your realizations. And also know that we're here to evolve, grow, learn. It's not going to be black and white. And also it's not right, wrong, good or bad. There's an isness in the business. And so what is the wisdom? What are you learning? And also, some relationships are evolving and need clearer structure. Some connections are draining and require distance or release. Some dynamics are shifting as we grow into deeper self awareness. This is not a time to judge or force relationships. Instead, we're being asked, honor our truth with compassion and mindfulness, communicate our needs with clarity, release guilt around prioritizing our well being, my friends. And so, this process, though, as you move through it, there might be things that come up too. Grief, conscious anger, frustration, or even relief may arise as we recognize that some connections were built on outdated patterns rather than true alignment. Or something might just be completing. Like, once I was realizing that it was time to shift from working in television, that was really hard. But yet it was no longer becoming beneficial for me because it was complete. And also there were so many outdated patterns of, like, the way the work system was. It wasn't a true alignment anymore. And what I needed to learn was complete. So then, understanding that any realization is a beneficial gateway of transformation, allowing to also then release relationships that no longer fit, or even careers that no longer fit. and then strengthen those that do. So here's a reflection question. Am I holding on to relationships or careers or something else out of habit, obligation, or guilt? That was definitely me for a time. And then many of us also were taught that love means self-sacrifice, that prioritizing others makes us good, and that saying no is selfish. Whew. I tell you, growing up Catholic, that is like embedded. Oh my goodness. But self-abandonment is not love. Codependent patterns can show up as ignoring your own needs to keep others happy. And that could also be in a career, ignoring your own needs to keep the career or the work situation happy. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to do your work. It just means that the other thing too in working in television as a producer, you're on a flat rate. So they hire you on a flat rate and they'll say, okay, you're on a flat rate, you're going to work, and you're also obligated then to work. They'll say 6 days a week, a flat rate for 6 days a week. But then the hours can be 18-hour days. Like, what? They can, I mean, they're at least like 12-hour days, 12 to 18-hour days. There's no overtime. And then sometimes they'll add on like a seventh day, but you don't get overtime for that. It is they hire you for a flat rate. I mean, look at the boundaries there. Like you have no boundary, like there's no boundaries. There, you don't say like, hey, I'm working a seventh day, so I get overtime. You feel like you can't even ask as a producer. It's just an unwritten rule that the producer works as much as the show needs you to. Like, oh my God. Like, so fascinating. Um, so codependent patterns then also show up in terms of feeling responsible for other people's emotions or feeling responsible in terms of regarding, like I said, like the career, the show. Saying yes when you really mean no because you feel like you have to say yes, avoiding difficult conversations out of fear of conflict, holding on to relationships that feel draining, hoping they will change. So, March's energy is supporting the release of these patterns, guiding us toward relationships built on mutual respect, emotional, being able to emotionally reciprocate to one another, and authentic care. So, then another reflection question is, where am I giving my energy away in ways that no longer feel right? Where am I giving my energy away in ways that no longer feel right? So, with that, then many people fear setting boundaries that they'll push people away, they'll push others away. However, healthy boundaries actually strengthen connections by creating clarity, honesty, and mutual respect. When boundaries are too weak, we feel drained, resentful, and or taken for granted. When boundaries are too rigid, we feel disconnected, isolated, and closed off. When boundaries are clear and balanced, we feel secure, respected, and supported. So, deepening connections isn't just about spending more time with people, it's about making those interactions more meaningful, authentic, and reciprocal. So, this means then learning how to communicate openly and honest with mindfulness, care. I really recommend mindfulness communication courses. There is a book called Say What You Mean by Oren J. Sofer. That book is so great for mindful communication. It's mindful nonviolent communication. And his courses, if you can take his courses, recommend them. I took 2 years of courses, and his coaching, mwah, I mean, chef's kiss in terms of him coaching people on how to talk about what they need and how to find like communication points with each other. He has such an amazing ability to coach people in terms of effective communication. I definitely recommend that book. It's Say What You Mean by Oren J. Sofer, Sofer. And his classes are so great. Um, so then also then recognizing that when a connection is evolving, it allows space for growth. So choosing relationships that uplift rather than deplete your energy. So here's a reflection in my life. So what relationships in my life feel deeply reciprocal? Which ones feel one-sided or draining? So take time to answer those questions. And then boundaries and actions, saying no, saying yes, deepening connection. The empowerment of boundaries is not just about saying no, it is also about saying yes to deeper, more fulfilling connections. So learning to say no with mindfulness and clarity. No, I am no longer available for relationships that drain me. No, I'm no longer available for careers that drain me. No, I will not tolerate dynamics that dishonor my boundaries. No, I will not tolerate work dynamics that dishonor my boundaries. No, I will not abandon myself to maintain someone else's comfort. Whoo-wee, that one. Oh, that moment of just following the group to the bathroom. I abandoned myself. I 100% abandoned myself. Like, I did not want to go. I abandoned myself. Oh, my younger self. I'm just going to give her a hug right now. I love you, younger self. I'm so sorry that you had to do that. So let's say it again. No, I will not abandon myself to maintain someone else's comfort. No, I will not abandon myself to maintain someone else's comfort. Whew. Saying yes to soul aligned relationships. Saying yes to soul aligned relationships. Yes, I welcome relationships that uplift and nourish me. Yes. Say it with me, friends. Say it with me. Say it with me. Yes, I welcome relationships that uplift and nourish me. Yes, I welcome relationships that uplift and nourish me. Yes, I am available for connections built on mutual care. Yes, I am available for connections built on mutual care. Yes, I am worthy of receiving the same love and respect I offer others. Yes, I am worthy of receiving the same love and respect I offer others. And so it is. Friends, this is a time to move beyond obligation, guilt, or habit and into relational authenticity, where our interactions are rooted in mutual care, respect, and energetic receptivity. I can't say that word. The reciprocal nature of our energy. So, with this, then, really taking the time, we're going to be wrapping up here. So, really taking the time, do I honor my own time, energy, and well being? Do I overextend myself out of guilt and fear? And remember, if you are, have compassion for yourself. And I share my stories with you because y'all, I've been there, done it, and I still at times, we're here to learn, grow, and evolve. And I will say I can recognize how much I've evolved since 2011, and doing that timeline frame, doing that timeline journaling really helped me this weekend to see where I am now and how far I've grown with this. Another question is, do I set boundaries with myself around rest, nourishment, and self-care? Do I set boundaries with myself around rest, nourishment, and self-care? So as we are realigning with our highest selves, many are reassessing not only who they connect with, but also how they nurture themselves, protect their peace, and honor their energy. And so letting yourself then look at, like, do I need to um do I need to bring any other resources in? Okay, so then with this, you know, just to kind of talk a little bit to wrap things up, the consequences of poor boundaries. If we ignore our need for healthy boundaries, we can experience burnout and emotional exhaustion, overcommitting, people pleasing, and feeling responsible for others' happiness. We can also maybe experience consequences of resentment, frustration, feeling like others take advantage of us or that we never get our needs met. We can also feel identity loss, becoming who others want us to be instead of honoring our own authentic self. We could also be in fear of disappointing others, saying yes when we want to say no. And this is why boundary work is essential. It's not just about creating distance from unhealthy relationships, it's about reclaiming your own energy, well being, and emotional sovereignty. So you want to check in to see if you're sacrificing your own well being to meet the needs of others or in terms of a career. And then also then a journey towards authentic relational healing and dynamics. Authentic relational healing means addressing old wounds that still affect how we relate to others. Because also Know that relationships are constantly evolving, and true relational healing requires honesty, growth, and a willingness to let go of outdated dynamics. Also, relational authentic healing means healing our nervous system's response to relationships, especially if we've experienced abandonment, rejection, or betrayal. Breaking generational patterns of self sacrifice or overgiving, especially if you were like me and you were raised in a situation where you went to Catholic school for 12 years and self sacrifice and overgiving were like two of the main themes you heard quite a bit. Learning to receive as much as we give. I can't tell you how to like just was overgiving, 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 and then being like, wait, I don't how the universe wants to give to me, but I'm like literally swatting it back because I'm not used to receiving. So letting yourself learn how to balance giving and receiving and let yourself learn to receive. So the reflection question for that is, am I allowing myself to receive as much love, care, and support as I give to others? And then navigating boundaries with awareness and compassion. Setting boundaries does not mean cutting people off without communication. It does not mean becoming rigid or inflexible. It does not mean ghosting people. It does not mean avoiding emotional depth. Instead, it means communicating our needs with honesty and clarity, mindfulness and compassion, which is why I also like the Oren J. Sofer book, Say What You Mean, in his classes, because he really teaches you how to communicate with more mindfulness communication and honoring, also learning how to honor what you need, and learning to listen too. Understanding also, instead, it also means understanding that not everyone will understand or respect our boundaries, and that's okay. And that's the other thing too. You get to have boundaries, but it doesn't mean that the other person has to understand or respect our boundaries, and that is okay. And vice versa. Being consistent also with what we allow in our lives. So if setting boundaries feels difficult, it may be because we were taught that saying no is selfish. You fear being abandoned if you set limits. You've taken on the role of caretaker, putting others before yourself. So if you are somebody also who was raised in a home with like that you took care of your parents' emotional capacity, that might also be where you're so used to taking care of other people. And so you might have to then, work with a practitioner or, just other tools to support healing that aspect from childhood and then learning how to rebalance your giving and receiving. But remember, boundaries are an act of self respect and self love. The more we honor our needs, the more we attract relationships that do the same. And it doesn't mean that we're not honoring other people's needs either. All right. So then also then energy work, noticing where your boundaries need attention. So you want to pause and reflect. Where in my life do I feel emotionally drained? Are there relationships where I give more than I receive? Where do I hesitate to express my needs? Do you feel safe to express your needs? Do you feel safe to share? Are you shutting down and it's only one person talking? Or do you feel guilty when you say no? Or do you feel guilty when you ask for something? So boundaries are not just about others, they're also about how we honor ourselves. So here are we're going to go now into the tips and tools, and we're going to begin to seriously wrap it up. Here are some tips and tools, somatic practices for energetic boundaries. One, you can do a grounding exercise where you can stand or sit. Actually, let's do it now. Let's practice. Stand or sit with your feet firmly planted on the earth or the ground. And then close your eyes, lower your gaze, and take a nice deep breath. And then imagine, sense, visualize roots extending from your feet, anchoring into the ground. I always let it anchor into my earth chakra, and then I pull the roots so that it really stabilizes it. And then feel your energy stabilizing as you're anchoring into the ground, feeling strong yet flexible. Take a nice deep breath. And then that's grounding exercise. And now let's just do a breath work for reclaiming energy. And we're going to invite Reiki energy healing. And if you wish to receive Reiki, say, yes, I'd like to see Reiki. And then inhale deeply. I call my energy back to me, transformed and transmuted. Exhale fully. I release what is not mine to carry. Again, inhale deeply. I call my energy back to me, transformed and transmuted. And then exhale fully. I release what is not mine to carry. And then one more time. Inhale deeply. I call my energy back to me, transformed and transmuted. And then exhale fully. I release what was not mine to carry. And then also within this, you can do a visualization of your energetic boundary. So you can picture, sense, of visualize soft golden light surrounding you. So picture soft golden light surrounding you. This is your energetic boundary, and it expands with love, yet protects your space also out of love. And as you breathe, you allow it to strengthen, fortify, and hold space for your truth. And also, if you need more space from people, you can imagine yourself being in a bubble and letting the bubble expand. So that way, then it gently nudges people a little bit more, a little bit further from your energy, like from your inner energy field. So take a nice deep breath there. Okay, so now let's just do some intentions while we're here. So repeat these after me if they resonate with you. While you're still in your, let's call it your bubble, your light bubble of protection, of love and care. So here they are. Repeat after me if they resonate. I honor my energy by setting healthy boundaries that protect my well-being. I honor my energy by setting healthy boundaries that protect my well-being. I release guilt around prioritizing my needs. I release guilt around prioritizing my needs. I release guilt around prioritizing my needs. I welcome relationships that are nourishing, reciprocal, and aligned. I welcome relationships that are nourishing, reciprocal, and aligned. I trust that saying no creates space for deeper yes moments. I trust that saying no creates space for deeper yes moments. I allow myself to be seen, heard, and respected in all relationships. I allow myself to be seen, heard, and respected in all relationships. Take a nice deep breath. All right. So now just imagine, sense, visualize. Now this light, it's moving through you, around you, clearing, cleansing, releasing, rejuvenating. You are safe. You're held. You're empowered. Once again, affirm if it resonates. I trust myself to honor my energy. I trust myself to honor my energy. My boundaries are an act of self-love. My boundaries are an act of self-love. I call in relationships that honor my truth. I call in relationships that honor my truth for the highest good and gratitude. For the highest good and gratitude. Take a nice deep breath. All right, we're going to start to come back now. And so we're going to just wrap up now, where I'm going to talk a little bit about the astrological connection to this energy theme, and then we're going to do the Reiki blessing, and we will be finished. All the intentions and the journal questions, there's actually more journal questions and more intentions. I'm going to put those in the show notes. All right, so the astrological connection to this is, there's a few of them. I'm just going to mention a few. There's Venus in retrograde in terms of illuminating unresolved relationship dynamics, self-worth issues, and personal value systems, making an ideal time to reevaluate boundaries that need recalibration or restoration. There's also was the blood moon eclipse in Virgo, brings in clarity in terms of relational patterns. There's also Sun conjunct Neptune dissolves illusions and relationships, making it easier to see where we have ignored our truth. Um, there's a few of them. I'm not going to mention them all. There's more of them that I'll put them in the show notes or on my Patreon. All right, my friends. So let's do the closing Reiki blessing. So take another deep breath. And as we conclude, here's the Reiki blessing. May your boundaries be clear, gentle, and strong from the space of compassion and love for yourself and others. May you find ease in expressing your truth and comfort in honoring your needs. May your connections be nurturing, reciprocal, and aligned with your highest self. May your heart remain open, guided by wisdom, illuminated by compassion, and anchored in empowerment and love. May you honor your energy with courage and clarity. May your relationships reflect mutual respect, trust, love, and care. May you feel empowered to stand in your light truth. May you know that you are worthy of deep, fulfilling connections. And may your journey through boundaries guide you toward deeper connection, inner peace, and soulful alignment. And so it is. And so it is, my friends. So it is. Before we go, let's just de-link so you can say this after me if it resonates with you. It's just a good practice of energy hygiene. I asked to break the links with this mindful talk. I asked to break the links with this Reiki session. I asked to break the links, leaving only harmony and balance at either ends. I asked to clear any residual energy being held in my body as a result of these links. I asked the light to fill the void, styles, rejuvenates, refreshes, revitalizes for the highest good with ease and grace in gratitude. And I ask this healing to be sealed with love and light. I ask this healing to be sealed with love and light. I ask this healing to be sealed with love and light. And so it is. So it is, friends. I would love to hear from you, my friends. If there's anything that you would like to share in the comments or any other tips and tools, I would love to hear from you. But that's it for now. Much love. Until soon. And stay inspired, my friends.